Alright, lecture number 3. Right, so running. This is lecture number 3. Well, the first thing is, life isn't about trying to get what you want. It's about enjoying what you got, right? It's the most important thing is to be able to sit back and enjoy what you got. Now, as I said, if pain and survival are your main considerations, then your approach is to grab a crumb of comfort, to find a way, to fight, to have fire in your belly, and to push through, and to hold on, to find a way, and to cheer up whenever you possibly can, with all your might, to grab that tiny moment of cheerfulness and pleasure and happiness and try and hold it with you, and to focus back on any times in your life when there's some good memories to remember, and hold them with you and say, that's worth fighting for. I'm going to fight for bringing back the times of good memories, and times when things are good. That's all kind of a type of fight, which is like a type of war. If pain and survival are the issues, then it's war. But if you can push those back and they're within reason, then it's actually quite a different approach. You sit in 3 stages. As I said, pain and survival, that was the approach. You approach it like it was a war. And then if you get past that, then you're on to the next stage, which is to appreciate what you got. And then the 3rd stage, which you can start to head towards, and this is the 3 stages of life, is then you can head towards what you want within the context of what is achievable, within reason. Yeah? And so be realistic. It doesn't mean you can't be ambitious. Be realistic about what you can achieve. If you're realistic about what you achieve, you have a strong chance of achieving it. Okay? That doesn't mean if a gooey girl with bangles in her ear says, I want to be on X Factor, I want to be a pop star. That's unrealistic. Well, probably not, because you go along to the X Factor little meetings, don't you? Get voted on to X Factor and all that kind of thing. I suppose it's not really unrealistic. It's very popular these days, and what perhaps might be quite difficult is to win, because obviously there's a lot of people who start wanting to do this, and only a few winners. But, about ambition, if you think you're in with a chance and it's what you really want to do, but that's the 3rd stage, really, when you get to the point where there's time, there's energy, you can focus forward, But certainly there's another aspect to life, which is, if pain and survival are not a major issue, then appreciate what you've got. And of course, a lot of people stop at that point. A lot of people stop at the point of appreciating what they got, and have no ambition or very little. Nothing wrong with that either. I don't see why everyone has to be the President of the United States. It'd be a bit crowded in the White House if everyone was. As I said, it's free will. The Catholic concept of free will. Free will is, well, obviously a lot to do with freedom. The Catholics have got spot on there, aren't they? Kenny's favourite expression, spot on. They're spot on with free will, because what is free will? Free will is freedom. Freedom to choose, and that is your essential freedom. It's like the source freedom comes with free will. Yeah? If you can earn a position to choose, that's freedom. Yeah? It's like the source of a river, free will. And the Catholics are spot on there. And it's one of the loveliest things about Catholicism. Spoken of religion, the books do, obviously, they have to do with religion. I don't know what I'm on to here. What are we? 4 minutes. Current affairs. Where were we in the world? South America, well, the main issue is drugs, isn't it? North America. Well, they do live in shanty towns, a lot of the Americans. I think the Americans are great people. They're fantastic people. They are really friendly. They're interesting. They're fun. But they're such dreamers, you know. It's like they'll live in a shack and dream of a mansion, you know. And what it's just it's America held together by dreams, you know. They are such dreamers, and they all dream and and never get there, you know. And are you happy with that? I mean, the Brits are much more realistic, you know. I don't mind the Brits. We can have depressing weather, which is a major topic of conversation in Britain. The weather. I don't think we're as fun loving as the Americans, but we're much more realistic about what we can achieve. The French, I know them well. They are totally obsessed with food. And it's a beautiful country. I had some nice friends in France. One day hopefully I'll be in a position to get back in contact with them. I mean, you may be surprised if, I say if and when, let's be positive the book's going to be published and everything like that. Being positive that my book's going to be published and taken on board what they're about, then it would get to the point where people, perhaps because of publication, show more of an interest in these YouTube sites. And they may be surprised at the content of the books and then the content of the lectures. They seem very different. A totally different sort of approach. Well, when it comes to the Jedis, well, and was this wonderful expression, Alice in Wonderland, which I love. And it's where the king says, or Alice says to the king, where do I begin? And the king says, you start at the beginning, you go through the middle, and you get to the end and stop. And that's the thing, you always start at the beginning of something, you know? I mean, Jediism was an idea, so you start at the beginning of it, you know? I mean, these days it's an official religion, because when they did a census, enough people put the religion as Jedi to form an official religion. And that made it a religion, and it looks like tremendous fun when I look at, you know, what I've seen of it. You know, the people that, these Star Wars conventions, and I looked a bit on the internet where I saw that guy who's head of the Jedis in Britain, and I saw the lady who seemed to be, I think she was head of the Jedis in America. I just think that they were just reaching too far ahead of themselves, you know, this very futuristic concept, this very sort of different scenario which is presented in Star Wars, which is so different to our world here. So, you know, you would have to adapt it. You would have to adapt some of that stuff and bring it back here, you know, so to speak. And then you've got some realism. Well, we're at 8 minutes, yeah. I'm too sure what YouTube says. I can only put the lectures on that can fit in the YouTube places. I'll load them up at some point. What else is discussed in my books? Oh, magic and mysticism. Politics. The Democracy XP books, which is the 3 other books after the 2 I showed you. That's political satire. Oh, it's about hot really. Well, I would, oh dear, how can I mean, some obvious things about my life, you know. And I can only describe that with what lies beneath. You know, it's sort of below. You know, it's sort of below. The books are about that, but you know, it's not really dealt with on top. As I can put it, it's not really dealt with, and therefore, what the Jedis are looking for is somehow to connect up what's below to what's on top. Well, you'd have to do that gradually. And sort of ease into it and take some ideas, bring them here, put them there, and you start to head towards a little bit something like you saw in Star Wars, in the films. Because at the end of the day, to see it from a logical point of view is to say that George Lucas had some ideas about these sort of futuristic psychic knights. Yeah? Well, we have psychics, you know. Once again, overwhelming evidence that they can do what they say they can do. people, for example, who can, it's quite common that people can make people sleep, what's it called, hypnosis. Well, everyone knows that's possible. You have some people who can do levitation. You have all sorts of different mind readers. There's people who've proved telepathy. So there are people who can do these things. And it occurred to me in Democracy XP to say to the Jedi, if you want to learn how to do these things, you could ask them to teach you. I mean, the only one I can do is a little trick. Which, I could do a few more at one point. I do have a little trick. Little sort of, it's sort of like a psychic trick. And I used to be able to do a few more at some point. But I don't really consider stuff terribly important. It isn't really that important to our world. I mean, if you see psychics on TV, or for example, the mediums who can talk to people who are dead and obviously coming up with all the right answers. There's one on TV at the moment, Colin something, in the mornings. So as I said, the evidence is overwhelming. Back to mysticism, evidence is overwhelming. However, if the Jedi's wanted to learn this stuff, they would have to ask these people. Although there is certain things that perhaps I can help with as well, which I've helped with in the books, to do with kind of understanding how things are structured. Obviously, because of what's happened to me, what's beneath is something that I've experienced a lot, and therefore, this teaches you about how everything is structured. Alright, so a lot of my books is about how everything is structured, and this is how I can help the Jedi. You need a good understanding of how everything is structured and how it all fits together. And by understanding that, you can sort of have a connection in your mind to all these things, and that would be vital to understanding a lot. And I wouldn't call that psychic. I would call that a type of approach whereby, I mean, the idea is, for example, the Emperor in Star Wars had hood pulled over his eyes. I do know a lady at a club where I go who has actually a similar vision. And I worked this out after a while. She was supposed to be blind, but she actually could see, but in a different way. And therefore, the thing when the Emperor had the cloak pulled over his eyes, he's obviously seeing without his eyes. She was doing the same thing. So that exists too. So, and you think some of these blind people, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, they seem to have no trouble